We'll give folks a few minutes to log in, yeah, really excited for this. This is going to be awesome. In some ways, this is kind of the culmination of my professional ambition. Not exactly, but for a long time, I had been in the energy efficiency kind of business, kind of working on the policy side, mostly trying to help governments and regulators kind of figure out the best ways to drive energy efficiency, across industries and commercial and residential. Working a lot with organizations like Efficiency Maine, but across the country. And I had been there kind of working in this space, and was always kind of frustrated by the fact that there were so many companies that weren't embracing the opportunities of efficiency programs, of state incentives, utility incentives. And when I left that company, I started my own company, Climate Resources Group, which is what I operate now. And Enlighten Your Grow is kind of my cannabis service offering within that. And kind of my purpose, really, in so many ways, is kind of connect customers, with these technologies, with these best practices, with opportunities to really save money, save energy, reduce their carbon footprint, and just kind of be a better operating company. So I'm really excited for this. This is really kind of the culmination of my dreams, and hopefully we can not just bring information to folks, but really also help them kind of get to the point where they actually take advantage of these technologies and systems. So I'm hoping to be able to do that for some of you, and either I just kind of bring you to this information and kind of let you kind of absorb it and drink it in. That's perfect. So let's go ahead and get the party started. This is Leafy Seminars. Leafy Seminars is basically just something that we developed as a way to kind of share knowledge in the Maine cannabis community. This is an emerging industry in many ways, at least kind of in its current form. And there are lots of components about running a cannabis business, which is not unlike running any other business. And most of us in life, we have our swim lanes and we stick to it. But if you're building a business, you need to to understand kind of all aspects of it. So we brought this together as a way to kind of share knowledge and information with folks. So we've had a real estate session not too long ago. We talked about sustainability at a high level. We want to be able to talk about security and investment and banking and all these things that can help folks kind of operate businesses. Really kind of learning from each other and recognize some of my long-term participants. So Danielle, looking at you, but glad you can make it. And again, we try to make these about once every couple of months. They were in person, of course. Now they're virtual, and the benefit of having them be virtual is that they are free to you. And I want to thank Prince Lobel, our sponsor for this, for the ability to make these free to you. Prince Lobel has been the sponsor for a number of these over the past year. And they are a full service law firm with about 100 attorneys on staff. Since 2014, they've been an industry leader in representing marijuana businesses, including dispensaries, cultivators, manufacturers, management companies, and others. And they provide sophisticated advice and representation to clients in connection with a wide variety of matters. They handle a lot of aspects of business, including banking, accounting, architecture, real estate development, the whole 9 yards. So if you have any questions about, how, legal issues or just practical questions around your own business development and legal needs, definitely reach out to Prince Lobel. They're a great organization. Adam Braillard, you may have seen him a couple of times on these seminars. He can be reached at 617-456-8153. And right now I'm actually going to put together a poll for you guys. We always like, excuse me. My mouse is very sensitive. So one of the polls we want to do right now is about kind of where you are as a business. What sort of operation are you in? This is going to just kind of help us kind of understand kind of really, who we're speaking with. I mean, the idea of this is to bring kind of all cannabis business participants kind of up to speed in terms of these things. But today, where efficiency really comes into play, it's going to be the heavy energy using components of the industry. So that tends to be cultivation primarily. And we're seeing, most of the folks on this so far are in cultivation and caregiver space, which is not surprising. Some retail operators, which is interesting. There are definitely some opportunities for folks in the retail space and dispensaries to take advantage of these technologies. And some extraction folks, which is really cool. So we can talk a bit about that as well. I see some energy consulting folks on the meeting today, which is great. And again, this information is useful for everybody. So definitely encourage folks far and wide to take advantage of this. So I'm going to end the polling now. Thank you all for participating. Yeah, we got 47% of folks are caregivers, cultivators. So makes a ton of sense. And so thanks for coming. Just some housekeeping before we dive into the good stuff. We want this to be interactive. We want you to actually to learn. If you have questions, ask them. We'll have time permitting and our own kind of capacity to answer them permitting. We will do that. So put them in the Q&A box. As you go, and we'll get them off to you. We'll respond to them during the Q&A portion of the session. And we'll also want to send an evaluation form your way, so you can make sure we make these seminars as useful for you as possible, and also make sure that we're covering topics that we think are going to be that are actually most useful for you moving forward. So let's get going. So Jesse, I've invited you on as a representative of Efficiency Maine. I'm really glad that you were able to do this for us and tell us a bit about the program. I've had the pleasure of getting to know Jesse and his team at ERS over the past couple of years. They are, I'd say, one of the nation's preeminent energy engineering firms, especially as it relates to understanding and working in the cannabis space. So ERS has done work across the country. Boulder County called them in to do an evaluation of their cultivation facilities in their county and city. They do work for utilities in Massachusetts and all over the country. So I'm, really feel lucky to have Jesse with us. He's a senior engineer at ERS. He's been there for the past 8 years, working with Efficiency Maine over that time. I was born and raised right here in Maine, and loves horticulture and all things related to energy efficiency. So Jesse, I'm going to make you host, and then you can launch in and do your thing. All right?
Yep, sounds great.
Let me figure out how to make you host. Hold on a second. There you go.
Sam, could you unblock my video? It says, oh, there we go.
All right.
Hi, folks. Big thank you to Sam for coordinating this. I work for ERS, but we implement the custom program for Efficiency Maine. That's what we will be spending the bulk of our time talking about today. All right. So yeah, it's great to be here, and it's really exciting that cultivators now have access to the Efficiency Maine program. So we'll talk through what those program offerings are, how the eligibility and incentives are determined. We'll talk about a little bit about some example project ideas and the kind of documentation that we'd be looking for an LED horticultural lighting application. All right, so we'll get started. There are two programs that Efficiency Maine offers, the prescriptive program and the custom program. For the prescriptive program, that's going to apply to equipment serving the non-cultivation facilities for the most part, things like just regular space lighting, boilers, heat pumps, VFDs, those types of things, very common types of equipment. There's set incentives for those. And you'll need to work with a qualified partner or QP to access those incentives. You can search for the qualified partners that are close to you or throughout the state on the Efficiency Maine website. There's a QP search tool there. But for the most of this presentation here, we're going to talk about the custom program because that's really more relevant for cultivation facilities. We see cultivation facilities as really another industrial process facility. And those types of facilities are served best through the custom program for the most part. So any of the equipment serving your cultivation areas is it's going to need to go through the custom program in order to get an incentive. So that's going to be things like your horticultural lighting or even your HVAC system serving the cultivation area. So the custom program is 3 tracks, and those are basically determined depending on the primary source of energy savings for the proposed project. Projects that achieve primarily electric energy savings go through the electric track, and similarly, projects that achieve mostly fuel savings go through the thermal track. I see some examples down here below, and then there's also a DG track or distributed generation track for combined heat and power systems that could also apply to your cultivation facility if you're interested. So the basic program requirement that determines eligibility, it's one of the first things that we have to look at, is this benefit to cost ratio. And this is intended to ensure that there is a net benefit for the project to the ratepayers who contribute to the funds that Efficiency Maine has that the incentives come from. And this really boils down to a ratio of the annual energy savings that the project is expected to achieve divided by the project cost, the capital project cost. And it's not quite as simple as that, but that's essentially what it boils down to. And this is a screening test that we can run pretty easily. If you can share rough order of magnitude of project cost and help us get a sense for what the energy savings might be, then we can give you feedback on whether or not the project looks cost effective and is worth pursuing further. So that benefit cost ratio has to be greater than 1. It's important, and review of the cost documentation becomes important in order to determine that benefit to cost ratio. In addition to that, there are minimum savings requirements for each of the program tracks that are really driven by the minimum program incentive. So in the electric program, you got to save at least 36,000 kilowatt hours per year. In the thermal program, you have to save at least 400 MMBTUs of fuel. So those translate to a minimum incentive of $10,000. So those are kind of tied together based on the incentive rates. And I'm going to pull these all up and then kind of talk through this. This slide describes how the incentives are calculated. So in the electric track, the incentives, and this is how I like to phrase it, the incentives are calculated at 28 cents per kilowatt hour, up to 1% of the project cost, and not more than what leads to a 1-year simple payback based on those annual energy savings. All right, so 28 cents per kilowatt hour, up to 1% of the project cost. We'll talk about that in a second, and not more than what leads to a 1-year simple payback. You'll see on the right side there, in the thermal program, the incentive rate is $25 per MMBTU of fuel savings. And of course, up to 1% of the project cost, and not more than what leads to a 1-year simple payback based on those annual energy savings. So I want to talk a little bit about these cost caps right here, because there's 2 different caps depending on the scenario of the project. And for those not familiar with energy efficiency programs, I'll define retrofits for you here. Retrofit means that you are replacing equipment that is currently operational and could continue to be operational. So in the retrofit case, we're looking at the full project cost of the proposed equipment. So if you had an existing facility that was running along, you have maybe you have HID lighting already, and it's you're using it, but you're recognizing that your utility costs are really high, and you'd like to make a switch to LEDs. You don't have to do it now, but you're looking to do that in order to save energy. That would be a retrofit, and we could provide up to 50% of the total cost of the LEDs, including the installation and any of the supporting kind of materials and equipment needed to install and get those LEDs operational. The lost opportunity is really it's kind of two possible scenarios. One is One is a new construction where you're building a new facility, you don't have any lights yet, and you are interested, you're weighing a choice between, say, HID lighting or LED lighting. So in that case, the project cost is actually the difference between those two options. It's the difference between the HID lighting and the LED lighting. Again, including the installation, the full cost of getting those equipment operational. So in that scenario, we actually need a quote for both the baseline and the proposed options in order to document that difference of cost, which we call the incremental cost. This could also be if you have a facility that's operating and say your HID lighting has reached end of life and it is needs to be replaced. It's no longer, it's not going to last much longer, and you have to make a choice about what you're going to replace it with. Are you going to replace it with HID lighting again, or are you going to put in LED lighting? So in this case, again, the project cost is the difference between those two options, and Efficiency Maine can provide up to 75% of the difference between those two options. The last kind of criteria here in the middle is that the program can provide up to $1 million per year through the electric and DG tracks, and it can provide up to $500,000 through the thermal program. Those are pretty high caps, and they aren't hit by many folks. So, no need to worry about those too much. Focus on the kind of those three kind of key criteria, and then determine what your scenario is. Is it a retrofit or is it a lost opportunity? And of course, there may be questions on this. We can talk about this more at the end. But the program also offers, the custom program has a couple other offerings for participants or applicants. We offer some scoping audits. Those are primarily towards larger facilities, but you can certainly reach out and ask for this. These are really intended to help folks identify possible projects. These are not going to lead directly to an incentive pre-approval. You're still going to have to take this and go to a vendor and get a quote or proposal and submit the application materials. But this can help you identify potential opportunities if you're not sure where to look or where to go. You're looking to reduce energy costs, but you're not sure what should you tackle. This gives us a forum or a way to discuss. And typically we would meet on site, take a look around your facilities, do some analysis and draft up a report for you, and then talk through it. The custom program also offers technical assistance studies. These are really intended to help support the energy savings analysis cost for larger and more complex projects. So typically the smaller projects wouldn't need something like this, but for those projects where the energy savings analysis to determine the economic returns for the project is a barrier to moving forward with the project, this can help. And it's really intended to help develop the savings analysis that is used to support the incentive pre-approval. So that's what the program is looking to get out of this. And you would get an analysis that could be used to support an incentive application, and you'd also get a really good sense for what the project cost and the annual cost savings would be. So what does the economic returns of the project look like, and is it worth pursuing further? So now we'll walk through the process here. Obviously, you submit your application. We'll talk about what that documentation looks like in a second. We would do our review, so that me and my coworkers here would do a review of the application and finalize energy savings and write a review summary of the project. And then we submit it to Efficiency Maine, and it also to a third-party review committee. We actually have to present these projects to a third-party committee that serves for Efficiency Maine to review these projects. We present them, and once they get, if they get the committee's blessing, then the project's pre-approved. And once it's pre-approved, there are some terms and conditions that need to be accepted if the incentive is less than $200,000. If the incentive is greater than $200,000, then there is actually a formal contract that's put together that describes the scope of work and what the incentive payment terms will be. So once that's done, then then you're free. You move forward with the project implementation. And once the project's complete, you'll need to submit your receipts of payment or your invoicing. And once we've received that, we would typically do an in-person inspection. Those usually take about an hour, and we'd collect some pictures of the installed equipment to verify that what was proposed was installed. And we would also try to verify at a high level that it's operating as proposed in order to achieve the energy savings that we're claiming for the project, which support this incentive. So on that note, it's important to let us know if anything changes from the pre-approval during project implementation. It's not entirely uncommon for something to come up that requires a change in a piece of equipment or change in scope of some sort. But if you think that might impact the energy savings associated with the project, it's important to let us know so that we can revisit the energy savings and the benefit to cost criteria and make sure that we don't run into trouble at the project closeout. So it's important just to keep us up to date on any major scope changes that might impact that project benefit to cost screening or the energy savings that are anticipated from the project. Once the inspection is complete, we write a final inspection review and we submit that to generate the incentive check, which is mailed to you. All right. So what types of projects or technologies are we talking about here? Well, for the most part, I'm anticipating that LED horticultural lighting is going to be the bulk of the projects that we receive through the Efficiency Maine programs. There's also opportunity for high efficiency HVAC systems for cooling. And there's also, I think, some opportunity for high efficiency dehumidification. Dehumidification is usually done with mechanical cooling. So you're cooling the air down below a dew point temperature in order to squeeze water out of that air. And then you need to reheat that air back up in order to deliver it to the room and maintain your room temperatures. So that process of cooling down and then reheating offers an opportunity for heat recovery. And there are a couple ways to do that. There are some wraparound heat exchangers out there. There's also some packaged HVAC units that offer what's called a hot gas reheat that offer this type of heat recovery to improve the efficiency of the dehumidification. So there's options out there, and there's really, there's no limitation per se on what you could propose. If the project saves energy and there's a cost associated with it, there is potential for an incentive. But again, it comes down to being confident in those energy savings. That's what pays for the incentive, and there has to be a cost associated that the program can help offset. All right, so the basic application requirements start with an application cover sheet. This is a one-page document that's available on the website. You could also reach out to us and we could send this to you. But it's pretty easy to complete. It just has contact info and a tax ID, which is how we identify unique customers in the program. We'll also need a kind of an overview of the project, and this could be a written summary. It could be a summary written into an email. It could even be over the phone. But we need somebody to help us understand the basic parameters of the project and what we're doing here. It's also useful, and we often ask for this, is a statement of the financial need in order to do the project. The program's really designed to make a difference in folks' decision about whether or not to install high efficiency equipment. So the statement of financial need, that incentive is needed to move forward with the high efficiency equipment, can be helpful. And also, including that if you receive the award, that you're going to move forward with the project. or that you would like to, that helps. The program doesn't want to be awarding a bunch of projects that don't move forward. They would love to all the projects that they award to be able to move forward. That's not always the case, and there's no binding requirement that you move forward should an award be made. But that's always nice to see. Another, an important part of the application are these quotes or proposals for the high efficiency equipment and the baseline equipment if this is a lost opportunity or a new construction type scenario. So those are really important because of the impacts of the cost on the benefit to cost screening, and also the ties to the incentive caps. So we're going to need a formal proposal or quote for any project. So it's often good if you can get that before you engage with us. It's going to be one of the first things we're asking for. We're going to, if you submit an application cover sheet and a description of a project, we're going to be asking you about the quotes, and that it's something that you can engage with us and then get those quotes, but that's going to be we're going to be limited in how far we can go in the incentive application review without the quotes or proposals. And then the savings analysis is really what is the justification for the incentive. This is this is what supports the incentive, are the energy savings for the project. So we really need a rigorous savings analysis for any incentive application. We certainly can help with this. Depending on the complexity, we have a limited amount of time, but we want to see eligible projects move through the program. So we're certainly, available to help, but this is a crucial part of the application. And we're gonna, many of the questions that we would ask of folks participating in the program would be related to refining the savings analysis. So we'd be trying to understand how the facility is going to operate or the equipment in question. If we're talking about lights, we'd be asking how many hours they're going to operate, things of that nature. And we may also ask about supporting equipment details. We also typically ask for some electric and fuel rate documentation because that ties into the simple payback calculation and the economic returns, which are important to your decision to move forward with the project or not. So for example, if you wanted to apply for an LED horticultural lighting incentive, you'd need to submit that signed cover sheet. You'd need to submit a quote or proposal. And if it was that lost opportunity scenario, you'd also need to submit the baseline quote or proposal. Then one of the things that we would be trying to verify for horticultural lighting application would be that the light that's going to be delivered to the room is approximately the same. And the reason we'd be asking about that is because we believe that your production is tied to the lighting intensity, that the light delivered to the canopy. And in all industrial production or process type incentive applications, we would typically try to normalize to production. And that's essentially what we're doing here, is trying to make sure that we're comparing apples to apples. We'd also be asking questions, as I had mentioned earlier, about the number of rooms, just the description of the facility to help us understand exactly how the lights are going to operate, when they're going to be on, any dimming considerations. And we're going to also ask a few questions about the supporting HVAC equipment in order to determine the interactive impacts of the project. All right, that's the bulk of the material that I had to present today, and I think I see a few questions in Q&A. Excited to talk through those, but here's a snippet from the webpage, the Efficiency Maine website. If you want to get you can see all this information that I just presented is under this tab at work, and then you can see the prescriptive programs there. Click that tab, or the custom program tab has a section for each of those tracks that I mentioned. Find more information on all of those offerings. All right, that's it. You can certainly reach out to me or the custom program directly. You'd be redirected to one of my colleagues. All
Thanks, Jesse. That was great. Are you wrapped up?
Yes. Yep. I just pulled open the Q&A here.
Yep.
So let's see.
Maybe we can get all the Q&A at the end.
Yep. Oh yeah. Yeah. Because I'm going to pass it back over to you.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, I know we'll get a lot of Q&A. It's going to come in. So thanks, folks, for those who've already submitted questions. Yeah, we'll definitely get to those. But yeah, Jesse, that was super. I hope folks are taking notes. There's a lot there.
Yes, I know it's a lot of material, and we certainly can. Folks can reach out as needed or work with you if they have additional questions. All right, here we go.
Yeah, no, it's perfect. It was fine, and of course there's a lot there, but I know that Efficiency Maine, does goes out of their way to really kind of make as much information possible for everybody. The
website's really good. It's very helpful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no one's trying to hide stuff. So yeah, reach out to Jesse anytime about this, and I can certainly help you kind of work through this as well. So I will describe a bit about what Climate Resources Group and Enlighten Your Grow does, and how this fits into kind of what you're looking to do, perhaps. So as I said at the kickoff, my name is Sam Milton. I started my company, Climate Resources Group, a few years ago with the ambition of connecting energy users with opportunities to reduce energy and carbon footprint. So all the intention of making businesses more profitable. And more run, better run. There are certainly lots of ways you can do this. I've been helping folks do this for a number of years. In the cannabis space, we provide energy and waste compliance services, so facility performance evaluations. I work with energy engineering companies, including ERS, to do this around the country, and we've had a lot of success in helping folks identify some of the red flags that might be inherent in some of the designs, to make sure that those issues are picked up before the building's actually is built and put together. So it's a good service that we can offer that's helpful. Like I said, and compliance is an important piece for those of us who are having operations in the south of Maine, Massachusetts, and Illinois have compliance needs, and so we've been helping folks do that. As well as writing standard operating procedures for sustainability and efficiency, really helping companies kind of dive into what they need to do to reduce their footprint, but also become more perform better in the marketplace, just differentiate themselves from others, and kind of reduce their overall use, and what kind of stand out as competition really heats up, and especially as on the facility side. As the commodity prices come down. Like right now, supply and demand are at a point where a cultivator can be fairly inefficient and still make money. That time is going to be over before you know it. And so those that are actually kind of dialed in terms of their energy use will be well served, and helping, of course, with the energy efficiency incentives. So get into that for sure. So yes, in terms of the cannabis space, there are lots of opportunities to reduce energy, as Jesse mentioned. Dispensaries kind of being one of the two categories, the large ones, dispensaries and cultivation. We also have manufacturing, of course, which we can get to later. But a lot of the options in dispensaries are already available kind of through the prescriptive program. Which is basically kind of the automatic rebate system in a way, if you will. So if you go to a hardware store and pick up light bulbs, you screw in, much like you would see in a lot of retail operations or residences. Those prices are already discounted, come by the retailer or to the retailer. That applies also for more commercial operations as well, and you see that for refrigeration systems, even HVAC controls. HVAC systems, a lot of these, can be, are discounted, at the wholesale retail level. So when you go and purchase that piece of equipment, it'll already be discounted. So, and this is something that, even though Efficiency Maine had intelligence a few weeks ago, basically disallowed cannabis companies from participating in their incentive programs. They never, you weren't asked what sort of business you operated when you bought some light bulbs from a distributor. So there's always kind of a way to get in there. But now with Efficiency Maine officially opening up to the cannabis business, cannabis sector, there's a lot more that they can do. And again, as Jesse mentioned, the big part this comes into is on the cultivation side, where you do have to have a more a custom approach to design situation. So in a cultivation facility, lots of ways that the energy efficiency can be achieved. As you probably know, especially if you're a cultivator, energy can be about 50% of the overall cost, of the cost of producing your business, the energy and labor. If you're a small caregiver, maybe labor isn't so much, but energy is certainly going to be a big piece of that. And all of these examples you see here, there are less efficient versions and more efficient versions. And the purpose, as Jesse mentioned, of this program is to incentivize customers, to step out and to get the more efficient version. And cultivation is tricky, right? Because there's no one size fits all really. A lot of growers have their own recipes, and for whatever reason, may have have comfort with some of the more inefficient technologies, the HPS lights, for example. This is the way to kind of move folks to consider LEDs, or to make it a little easier if there are specifically financial barriers standing in the way. So again, lighting is huge, and as Jesse mentioned, that's really kind of the lowest hanging fruit for a lot of folks. And I'll walk you through a couple of examples about lighting incentive programs, lighting incentives, and the cash value from those for Efficiency Maine. Air conditioning and heating, dehumidification, those are also really big areas where folks can save money. Dehumidifiers also a big area, fits into the HVAC and the air conditioning, of course. But all across here, you can definitely get savings. CO2, I'm not sure if there's a more efficient CO2 delivery system. I don't know if the utilities have done that before, Jesse, but in any event, I think that if there's any technology where there is a more efficient and a less efficient version, submit that to Efficiency Maine, and see what they can do. And 9 times out of 10, they'll be able to to help you kind of to get there if you're looking for an incentive. So a couple of examples here I've teed up. One is for a lighting retrofit in a bedroom, and one is for a new lighting project in a new grow operation. So in this example, we have an applicant who wants to replace 60 lights in a bedroom. So right now they've got metal halide lights, or about 675 watts per light and per fixture. And that wattage number, just so you know, includes the ballast as well. So not just the light bulb itself, but also the ballast. And so we're putting in, for this example, about 675 watts, and about $350 per light. And again, that per light is basically the sum of all the equipment that you need to get started with that light. So not just the bulb, but again the ballast, hood, and all that stuff. So we're putting in $350 for this example. The applicant wants to go with LEDs, and so the LEDs that they're looking at 350 watts. So less energy intensive, of course. They cost more, 650 watts per light, $650 per light. Again, which keep in mind too that these have to be similarly, lights have to be similar in terms of their energy output. So this is a smaller LED than you might find in a flowering room. So keep that in mind. You look at these numbers, and again, don't rake me over the coals if these numbers don't exactly reflect your personal situation. This is just an example. And as we know, there are everyone does things a little differently. So anyway, put this into the equation and kind of see what comes up with. And you see 125,000 kilowatt hours of annual electricity savings, which is enormous. It's about the same amount of power that 15 homes use in a year. So just by making the switch, you're saving that much power. your annual operating costs will go down by $15,000 or so just on electricity alone. And that's without even taking into account the fact that you have to replace your metal halide bulbs more frequently than LEDs. LEDs last, 100,000 hours or so for years and years and years. And so you're saving a lot that way. The incentive that Efficiency Maine will give you for this is going to be limited by the amount of money it takes to help you get to 1 year payback. So basically, Efficiency Maine says, listen, this is such a good deal anyway to move to LEDs from metal halide that we'll give you only what it takes to get to do that within 1 year. So that's kind of one of the things that makes, I think, this program a little. They've evolved from the first ones where you basically say, all right, we'll give you money, per kilowatt hour saved, or just for the price. And just so you know, per kilowatt hour saved at 28 cents, it would be $35,000. And for the upfront cost of the lights, 50%, it's $19,000. So $30,000 figure here is is definitely limited by the incentive, the payback. And as Jesse mentioned, $10,000 is the minimum project or incentive check. So so this wouldn't work on its own, but it would be supplemented by a veg program. Or I'm sorry, a flowering light project, which we will get to next. So for a new flower room, again, 60 LEDs, just as a number we're using. The baseline light, HPS, 1100 watts, all in, $500 per light. And the applicant wants to go with more efficient LED light. So 350 watts is how much this light draws. But the price tag is $1,200. So clearly a lot more to get there. And that is, it's tough for most people to do. So we put this into the calculation, and by making this switch, the applicant is saving 117,000 kilowatt hours, per year. Note that that's actually a little bit less than the veg room project, just because the veg lights, run 6 to 12 hours more than a flowering light. So that's something that we have to take into account. Savings of $13,000 a year, again without replacement cost. But the payback for the incentive that Efficiency Maine will give you is $32,000, because the lowest of those three options is just the 28 cents per kilowatt hour saved. So that's not a bad check to get for deciding to make this purchase decision. Or this application. And again, keep in mind that your mileage may vary. So this is not your project. This is not guaranteed that it'll have to look like this if it's similar. It has assumptions. But this kind of gives you a flavor for what's out there. Enlighten Your Grow, we are more than happy. We would love to help you do this. One of the things that we do, again, our purpose for existing is to help get cultivators and the other energy users to come adopt energy efficient technology. So we know this stuff well. We've read the program opportunity notice a ton of times and kind of live in this world. So let us help you do this with this. Do this for you. It's not essential. You can do it yourself. Jesse kind of laid out all the steps you can do. And it's definitely, it's manageable, but it can be a big lift, and it can be a little bit overwhelming, intimidating. I often think of the equivalent of painting a house, right? So you can probably paint a house. You can paint your own house, but you might get paint all over the place. You may spill all of your shoes. It might not look that great, and it might take you longer than if you were to have a professional help you out. So you can kind of consider Enlighten Your Grow, your professional house painting service. We'll get it done, and you won't get any paint on your clothes. So we can work with you to get all the materials together that you need for the application, and depending on the scope of the project and how much kind of heavy lifting there is to do, the amount of effort that we put in will change. And so people ask about the rate structure, of course, which is reasonable. You know, we can do an hourly, which is fine. A lot of folks prefer to do a you know, a percentage at the end of the term. The industry standard for this is about 20%. But you know, we understand that, again, there's a different size projects out there, not one size fits all. And 20%, you know, on my end, you know, would be, you know, reasonable for a smaller project for sure. It may not even cover all my time. For $1 million incentive check, that's a lot of money, and I probably, you know, understand that you know, we can find a lower number, but it's all worth the conversations. You know, if you want to move ahead. So yeah, let's get into Q&A. It's 12:45. I know people have things to do and places to go, but we definitely have a lot of questions coming in, and want to answer those. So I'll put the screen up. This is how you can contact Jesse and or me anytime. So Jesse, let's get some Q&A, shall we? I think you've been hitting some of the questions
Yes.
you know, during the session. Maybe we can just kind of go over them, just you know, verbally, in case people aren't seeing those questions come up. Does that sound good? So one maybe just, you know, a high level is if people, if it only be redundant, of course, but people are asking about solar incentives, for example. This doesn't touch solar, does it?
Yeah, in the custom program, solar would theoretically be you know, eligible. We've had folks inquire about it over the years, but unfortunately, we've never had one pass the benefit to cost test. Ultimately, the costs have historically been too high. Those costs have come down, you know, more and more, and we've seen those projects get closer and closer to being cost effective. But at this point, we have not yet funded one through the custom program. So that's kind of, I know that there's an ITC credit available, and net metering, of course, helps, but we haven't been able to fund, you know, provide an incentive for a solar PV system through the program at this point. Yeah,
and I'll add too that the state of Maine is incentivizing solar development, but at large utility scale projects. So what we're seeing now is a lot of solar development, you know, in farmland or in scrubland. There's just a lot of kind of clean power coming online. So you're seeing a lot of companies who are developing those speculatively and are now looking for off-takers, basically for subscribers, to come in and, you know, and basically, you know, and promise to purchase, you know, an amount of that power for their needs. So that's one way that if you're inclined, if you're interested in going solar and using solar, which is awesome, I would definitely encourage you to do that. That's one way to do it. But even without that, it's you know, putting solar on your facility, especially if you are if you use a lot of power, which, you know, most of you do, if you cultivate, you know, makes a ton of sense. And of course, always the financing around you know, what it means to be a cannabis business and to have access to capital. That's a whole nother discussion. But so solar is definitely worth doing. I'm gonna actually, I know you answered folks. You had some questions come in Q&A. I think maybe you answered some of them. I'm gonna share some that maybe folks haven't seen, and we'll also put all these together. We'll you know, publish these. The video will be available. These slides will be available, so you can kind of have them for future reference. I'm sensitive that we have 10 minutes left, so we'll try to be quick about this. But Hadley asks, Jesse, what are the terms and conditions for projects less than $200,000? Or how does like a, you know, a smaller project, how do you guys approach that? And does that change at all, kind of, you know, your work? I know there's a cutoff in terms of if it goes to a committee or not, so that kind of takes time if it goes to committee. And if it's a smaller project, then it doesn't. Can you speak to that?
They actually, all the custom projects have to be presented to the committee.
Okay.
At this point, all custom projects we have to present to the committee and get their blessing for the pre-approval.
Okay.
But the larger projects do get that more formal contract, the terms and conditions is it's an email that gets sent. And I was going to try and pull up the language. Most folks, I don't think I've ever had anyone that had a kind of an issue with them. But the intent of the terms and conditions and the contract is just to have an agreement that says if you do the proposed project, what you said you were going to do, then we agree to provide this incentive. So it's the legal agreement or the binding agreement for both the trust and you about the project and the incentive. And I don't know if there's any way to. Not sure that I can actually share those terms and conditions, but if you engage with us, we could certainly provide some more detail about that.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and that's a question I think folks will have, and that's again it's a piece of information that will be readily available if you just kind of if you ask. So we'll make sure that we get that to you, Hadley, if you're interested in. And you are
basically you just have to read through them and then accept them in order to get the final incentive approval. You have to accept those terms and conditions in order for that to happen.
Yeah. Jesse, we have a really interesting question about Trigen and using CO2. So how do you think about a large as an application that includes DG, distributed generation, and also some integrated kind of HVAC services and even CO2 delivery services. How would you possibly begin thinking about what the incentive would be for something like that?
Yeah, that is a great question. We would review that as through the DG program, through the DG track, as a combined heat and power application. We would be looking at the maintenance and operations benefits from the project. Those are now actually included in the benefit to cost screening criteria. So for projects where there is an impact on the O&M costs, for either the baseline or the proposed equipment, that's an impact that we have to try to quantify if it's significant. So there could be benefit to the cost effectiveness screening in terms of capturing CO2 and funneling it into the cultivation space and not having to provide kind of separate supplemental CO2. But yeah, it's a great concept, and I think it's been done successfully at other facilities. And CHP is, it's a great option for those folks that have the thermal load to support the continuous operation of the equipment throughout the year. So basically that's thermal load through the summer, right? So you got to have enough thermal load to use the output of the CHP unit. Otherwise, it's generally not cost effective to run a unit just based on electric output alone. So that's really one of the first things we look at with CHP is seeing if there's enough thermal load to support the proposed size of CHP system. And what I would expect for cultivation facilities is that would be associated with the reheat. That's for most hospitals that we look at CHP for, it's associated with dehumidification and reheat their thermal load in the summer. Obviously hot water as well, but reheat is surprisingly large load, and I could see a CHP system working for a cultivator using that heat output for reheat during the summer.
Mm-hmm. And how closely are you looking at examples of other utilities in other states? There's been in a lot of states where there are legal cannabis industries, where the state utility has not disallowed cannabis participating, which is every other state in the country. Are you guys looking at examples from those places? Like I know there's been some extraction equipment which has been incentivized by Efficiency Trust of Oregon, Energy Trust of Oregon. Are you pulling from those guys? Are you working with them in any way, or are you kind of working this on as it goes?
We are trying to learn as much about we try to learn as much about all the industries that we work in as possible. We try. That's really that's our bread and butter, is being knowledgeable about processes and how energy is used. So, we're certainly interested in seeing what other folks are incentivizing, but ultimately, the Efficiency Maine program is it's its own program, and their own rules and regulations. we'd be more than happy to take a look at, high efficiency extraction equipment or anything else that folks, might have in mind that they are, need a little bit of financial support in order to move forward with. That saves energy and has a cost associated with it. There's potential for that to be cost effective, if there's equipment involved. And, we'd be happy to investigate it with folks. So, certainly I'm not super familiar with kind of I have a little bit of familiarity with the other programs, but not a ton with all of them necessarily.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the utility folks, as much as anybody, are kind of figuring this all out, as they go. Yeah. So I'll be the first person to admit that I don't know everything. So I'm learning all the time from working with you and some of your colleagues, but also looking at what's happening in other parts of the country.
We work in Massachusetts, so we're pretty familiar with what those programs are doing. Mm-hmm. But it's LED horticultural lighting and some HVAC systems, like we kind of discussed here today.
Yeah, exactly. We have a couple minutes left. I just want to make sure that Tony's question is answered. And I think maybe you kind of got to this, but he's kind of, maybe just, clarify the timing in terms of the, where a purchase decision, can happen during this process. In terms of
So this is a great follow-up question, Tony. And I think what you're looking for here is kind of just confirmation or clarification that pre-approval is required, and it really is. We have to get that incentive pre-approval. You have to receive the incentive award notice before you can purchase the equipment. If you purchase the equipment prior to the award notice, you kind of, in most cases, that makes the project immediately ineligible. Except where you can really show that you made a mistake and you're counting on the incentive. But really, pre-approval is required. It's similar to the benefit to cost requirement. It has to be met. And the reason for that is that the program, needs to, it's trying to make a difference in folks' decision about whether to move forward with high efficiency equipment. And if they aren't making an impact on that decision, then they actually get penalized for it on the back end, because they claim savings associated with the project. And if it's found out later on during an evaluation of the program that they didn't make a difference in that project in terms of the customer choosing the more efficient equipment, then they don't get to claim those savings. And that's why they care about this, because it's ultimately important to them in terms of being able to claim the savings associated with the project, which is what justifies the program in the first place. So that pre-approval is required. We try to work as quickly as possible in order to help folks get those pre-approvals so that they can move forward. There's no way to kind of purchase the equipment and then get the pre-approval through the custom program.
Yeah, and it is. I've spoken with quite a few folks who come to me and is like, I just bought these LEDs. Is there any way that I can get this incentive? And it pains me to tell them there's not really.
It's unfortunate, but
we
got to get you involved as soon as possible, really, to get that incentive pre-approval before you make the purchase.
Well, and having kind of sat through some of the board meetings of Efficiency Maine and Mass Save, they're asking us questions like, is this program cost effective? Because there's no way they're going to allow a program to give money out for incentives that aren't cost effective. Especially if there's free ridership. So it's behind the scenes, there's a whole lot of people kind of thinking about how to make these programs as good as possible, and how to make them actually to work to grow, to grow these opportunities for folks. And so it's all about kind of helping people get to the point where, or get the technologies to the point where in the market will pay for them. So if there's any sort of financial barrier, in technology, getting into someone's operation, into someone's business, then this is where this comes in. It makes perfect sense. So I see we're actually 1 minute over the top of the hour. So I just want to say thank you all for being a part of this. This has been really great. Jesse, thank you for joining us and sharing your information and knowledge.
Absolutely. Thank you, Sam, for pulling this together, and also the participants. Great questions. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, like I said, the video will be available. The slides will be available in the Q&A. We'll put those in a form to share with you as well. And feel free to reach out to Jesse or I or the Efficiency Maine website, and we can help you get there. So you're not alone. So let us help you if you have any questions. So with that, thank you all so much, and have a wonderful rest of the day. Thanks.
Bye.